In this video, we're going to go quickly step by step on how to enable logging on your DBsign server. And we're on Windows here, but it's going to be very similar on Linux. So follow these instructions either way, and you'll be good to go on either platform. What we want to do is go edit a couple of files in our DBsign server deployment directory. So we're in Tomcat here. So I'm going to go to where my app server is installed and into its deployment directories. And we have the folder where DBsign is deployed. And inside of here, we have web-inf. Now, if you've watched the installation videos and configuration videos that we've done previously, we've been in this folder several times and we've looked at this dbsign.cfg file. But we want to look at this other one too now, dbsignlogger.cfg. So let's open both of these up in our favorite text editor. Usually, if you're editing dbsign.cfg and if you're doing a lot of work in it or you're changing passwords, you're really going to need to be using the configuration editor. Just because it's easy to make mistakes in here. You could misspell something, you could put a wrong value. If you edit it through the config editor, it's just less error prone. But we just want to enable logging just quick and dirty, and we can do that just fine by editing this file by hand. And so what we're looking for specifically up close to the top of the file in the global config section is this debug enabled parameter. And we want to set that to true. And then, so that will enable logging. And then we want to find debug file. And this is where the debug file is going to be written to. It's not important the name of this file, name it whatever you want. It's not important where it goes, put it wherever it is that you put things in your environment. But what you do want to make sure is that this folder structure exists. This file does not have to exist, but if the parent folders do not exist, you're going to get error messages. So let's go and make sure that that exists. And I don't have a temp folder on C, so I'm going to go ahead and create it. Again, the file doesn't have to exist, but the parent directory structure does. So we've enabled debug logging here, and we have specified where it needs to go. Now, this debug file is a request debug file, and what you'll see in this one is a log of each request that comes into the DBsign server. And in the log for those requests will be the request parameters that are sent, any post or get parameters, along with headers and information about the request. It will also have all of the parameters that are sent back to the client. So this is a log of request and response information, and it's very handy. This log that we're going to configure in DBsign Logger is a very detailed log of everything that's happening during the request. So by default, this is all going to be commented out. So we're going to uncomment this section of the XML. And under the parameter level, we're going to set that at 3. That's the highest log level. So set that at 3. And the pattern is going to be the name of the file that gets created. Again, the file does not have to be there, but the directory structure does. Type, leave that alone. This is going to create a CSV file that you can open up in a text editor or something like Excel, a spreadsheet program, something like that. And then there's this append parameter. And what this means is if the server is restarted and this file exists, if append is true, it will not get rid of all the old information of the file. It's just going to append at the end. I'm going to set this to false because for debugging purposes, a lot of times it's just easier if this file doesn't keep growing across restarts. So I'm going to set it to false just for now. If you want that file to persist across restarts of your application server, set append to true. So we've got our log level set here, we've got the path to the log file set, and we've set append to false. And that's all we need to do in those. So let's close those up and let's go to our services and restart our application server. Tomcat's not started, so I'm going to just go ahead and start it up. If your application server is started, then you need to restart it for DBsign to see those parameters. And we should actually see some files in here right now. Yep, but they don't really have anything in them. So let's throw a request at the DBsign server. I should have something in history here. Let's just try that one. And it's asking us for our certificate. And there's a successful DBsign request. And then I'll just for right now, just for good measure, I'm going to stop Apache again, stop Tomcat, so that it will flush the logs out. And we'll just take a look at what each of these logs have in it just real quick. Again, these are just text files. Open them in a text editor. This is the response, the request and response log. Again, this is request. This just logs request information. Here's request number 1, and it tells us all about the request, what headers were in it, and any parameters that came through. And then it tells us information about the certificate being used to sign with, and then all of the information being sent back to the client. So this is a request and response log. If we look at the CSV file, we see lots more information. And this log is very, very detailed, but it helps us in troubleshooting. So most of the time, if you call DBsign support and we ask you for logs, this is really the log that we want because it's very detailed and can tell us what's going on. So that's how you enable logging. Very simple, very straightforward. Let us know if you have any questions, and we'll see you in the next video.